What's up, Cigar World and YouTube land? This is Anthony, and that's
Melanie.
And we are Forward on Fifth Cigars, and we're here today to talk to you about cigar news and
cigar acquisitions.
We'll be right back after we light up these cigars. Stay tuned. Today's show is brought to you by TABSA Habano. When you absolutely must have the best, think TABSA Habano. Available to you at Forward on Fifth and ForwardOnFifth.com. Right, Melanie?
That's right.
What's up, guys? So today we're going to talk about something very interesting in the cigar world, and that is cigar news. So Melanie and I have been talking a lot lately, and a lot of the world's been all aflutter about what, Melanie?
The recent acquisition of Thompson Cigar.
Thompson Cigar by who?
STG. Did I say that right?
You did.
It was Scandinavian
Tobacco
Group.
Yep.
Scandinavian Tobacco Group.
Who also happens to own
Cigars International?
Cigars International.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just blanked on it. I was not prepared.
Yes. Some people would call that the evil empire, or an empire full of cigar. So, like Melanie said, we've got a couple key players here. And for those of you who are kind of just learning about the cigar industry and learning about things, there's really three players or three things you need to know about this story. First of all, Thompson. Thompson has been around for a long, long time as a catalog company. Big operation, definitely one of the top echelon guys who do a lot of business in the US and abroad every year when it comes to cigars. And then you've got your another player, which is Scandinavian Tobacco Group, STG. Scandinavian Tobacco Group is the parent company of General Cigars. And General Cigars, a lot of people probably don't know this. If you walk into the humidor, like your tourist walks in the humidor or your newbie to cigars, they generally ask for a couple cigars, right? They ask for Macanudo, they ask for Partagas, they ask for, Punch, La Gloria Cubana, some of these very, big traditional names. All those are underneath General Cigars umbrella. They are a massive operation. Think like InBev in the, beer world, Anheuser-Busch. Massive conglomerate, and they buy up things left and right and put them underneath their portfolio. They haven't been as active. Well, actually, they have been pretty active. They got Toronio. They got San Lucia stuff a few years ago, and that kind of jumped back out. They picked up a accessory company with Paleo.
They have Chilling Moose.
They've got the Foundry, which is kind of their answer to the boutique world. Interesting story about actually Scandinavian Tobacco Group, and we can kind of fill this in. But there was a couple years ago, like if you did a little bit of research on like LinkedIn, right? You go check out the top echelon of General Cigar, you would see that almost everybody in the top managerial sales positions and marketing positions were all from Miller Coors and their in-house promotional team.
Really?
And what's interesting about that is that that's the team that was pretty much responsible or was part of Blue Moon. Now, if you guys are beer drinkers out there, a lot of you guys are.
I'm not, so you're going to have to help me out.
Perfect. Blue Moon was pitched to the U.S. audience as kind of this boutique beer company. And when they were launched, they were positioned to be their own thing, like they were just this little upstart that was getting their way up there. And then over time, people figured out that they were part of Miller Coors, and that was really a Miller Coors project. And then they quickly lost all their cachet as far as being like a
So they're tricking people into thinking it was a craft beer company?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't as authentic.
No, they were trying to create an authentic image of the craft beer scene. They knew that was a hot scene, and it was definitely cutting into their sales margins.
Okay.
So they created these different elements to do it. And then over time, what Anheuser-Busch did, or InBev, they actually acquired Miller Coors in one of the biggest acquisitions, which was crazy. But beyond that, they started to go after craft beer companies. So big ones like Goose Island, Four Peaks, a local one for us. All these companies got brought into them to give them more of a craft beer facelift, to show that, hey, we're craft too, and we're also mass production. So that was the story kind of in the beer world. Well, anyway, some of those execs, some of those sales guys all got pulled over to General Cigar.
Oh, wow.
So General Cigar, a handful
So they knew what they were doing. They wanted to get the guys that were doing the marketing for the beer industry.
Now, what they didn't really bank on as much is that the cigar world is similar as it is to a lot of other consumable product categories or luxury categories. It's its own beast. And I've said this before, we've said it in videos, and I really stand by it. The cigar industry is a wild, wild west.
Oh yeah, and you get eaten alive at first, which I've experienced.
Yep, you get eaten alive. There's no rhyme or reason how it works. Every time you think that logically it should go one way, it goes the other way. It's just a mess of, crazy rules.
It's a very tight community, a lot of unwritten rules.
A lot of unwritten rules.
It's our own culture, which you soon learn quickly as you kind of get engulfed into the industry.
So your second player, Scandinavian Tobacco Group, who owns General Cigar, who has these execs who try to position them to be more of a craft company, also went after the direct channel elements to it. And what that means is that instead of just selling to the retail shops like us and to the distributors who ultimately sell to us, they sold directly to the public. And once again, in the beginning, they were fairly secretive about it, and they tried to hide those elements with Cigars International. Now, obviously, with Thompson, it's a very big thing. It's out in the open, but they have quickly done not only direct-to-consumer channels, they've done these craft little elements, and then at the same time, they're still selling us all their product. So
time out, sweetie.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't understand, if you are from any other industry, you don't see why you wouldn't, as a manufacturer, sell direct to the public, direct to the consumer, and skip everyone else. And in the cigar industry, it's very sacred. You do not. That's one of those unwritten rules, you do not sell direct to the consumer. So do you want to explain that?
I think you did a pretty good job of it. I mean, traditionally there's been this, sacred element of you don't sell directly to the consumer. Now it's been broken from time immemorial. There's been companies.
Davidoff.
Davidoff for sure, Altadis with their new lounges. But you go back even to Holtz, right? Holtz is a retail operation, but also owned by the Levin family, who owns Ashton Cigars. Now, there's been issues in the past with a company like Cigars International. They represent all these different elements of the Scandinavian Tobacco Group, and they have historically sold at different points in time certain elements online for cheaper than what the retailer could actually even buy them at. And that's why, the retailers get frustrated at these giants. All I have to say is that we have those three main players, right? Once again, you've got Cigars International, Scandinavian Tobacco Group, and now you've got Thompson. And it's been estimated, there's variance on what they're estimating, but something of the online sales market and the overall sales market of cigars in the U.S., something along the tune of, what was the article saying?
The article was from Half Whale, because you want to give up credit where credit's due.
Sure.
Oh, shoot. A lot of the sales.
Anyway, what does it mean that they acquired Thompson? It means that the industry, which is already small, got a little bit smaller and a little more owned by one of the big guys. And
creating a monopoly.
Yeah, once again, they operate outside of the U.S., so their headquarters are outside of it, so technically they have more of an ability to do it. But as far as the U.S. is concerned, the U.S. tries to protect, anti-competition elements in business, such as monopolies. So, while this may not be considered a full-on monopoly, or it might be, I think in our industry, we'd certainly look at it as a monopoly. It does eradicate some certain elements of competitive play. Same thing with Altadis and their acquisition. They've been acquiring Serious Cigar Company and other places across the U.S. and building up their portfolio. These big guys are all doing the most they can to become bigger and to stake out not only retail operations, but also internet space. They are controlling the market. And They're doing a good job of it.
Absolutely.
And from a consumerist standpoint, and a capitalist, well, not consumerist, but more from a capitalism standpoint, you know, you can't hate the player. You can hate the game, but if we were in a position or somebody else was in a position to make big gains and growth, you would certainly try to do it as a business owner.
The only reason people don't like it is because we can't be in a position to be in that position, right?
Yeah. Oh, and to be fair and to be clear, we don't love it. But we also know we chose to play in this arena, and the best that we can do is what we do.
Yeah.
So while we might not appreciate it or enjoy it, and it certainly isn't a great thing for the overall health of the retailer, it's something that we accept. That is this bigger picture. Now, what's interesting is that there's some other guys on the horizon. There's heavy rumors about Famous Smoke Shop, which is another big online retailer that is supposedly being bought out. Once again, there's rumors as to who's doing the buying out, but they're slated to go and be bought out. Kept more quiet, but definitely there's been discussions about some cigar companies that are being consolidated. So there's a lot of this consolidation of the industry. Accessory game just changed a lot. Cigar sold out to quality importers. They got bought up by quality importers, and that's
Which
a
is
new
interesting,
acquisition.
yeah.
It's a big acquisition, definitely different. Once again, you know, you're seeing this kind of consolidation of the industry into a few key big players, and then these smaller outliers, which are us, mom and pop operations, still trying to do our thing. The other interesting part, Haskell wrote this article and kind of took it as their spin of IPCPR remaining quiet on this issue. And I thought it was an interesting read. And it's an interesting question, right? So the International Cigar and Pipe trade show that all of us go to every year, the IPCPR organization, not only represents us, the retailers, but they also represent the manufacturer. And a large amount, as was pointed out in the article, of the funding of the IPCPR organization is by the manufacturer. That being said, Hatfield's statement was, and at least Charlie's editorial on it was, is that the IPCPR should be taking a stance against this acquisition, as it is somewhat of an anti-competitive practice. Now, that being said, he brings up an interesting point, because it's very hard for an organization that represents both sides to arbitrate in the middle and really fight for both people.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the pockets of one's going to be deeper, and ultimately one's going to be favored. And honestly, once again, you know, to a capitalistic practice, rightfully so. So there is this question too of, you know, who's going to kind of police or help out, you know, regulate this industry on some levels, who will take that step and call out some of these things. And there really isn't anybody to do that. Why isn't there just like a retail organization that focuses on the retailers? Or why isn't there, you know, a boutique manufacturing organization that just focuses on the smaller guys and allows for that to be a protected group and advocates for what their needs are? Now, there's been a little bit of tries in these levels. You know, there's been organizations that have tried to do both things in small ways and never been very successful. And once again, not to the organization efforts. It wasn't really their fault. It was more the fault of the fact that as retailers, especially in this industry, a lot of us are super independent, super stubborn, and we don't work necessarily well together.
Well,
some of us do. But it is a fair statement to say. I mean, once
Yeah.
again, I've been to over 200 shops in my territories in the years that I covered the road. And there are a lot of guys who know how to work together, and there are a lot of guys who don't and want nothing of it and dislike the people around them.
Yeah, it's all competition. And
Yeah.
on top of that, when, say, if you were to say, a lot of it is money, right? Because the big manufacturers, you know, the IPCPR is in a very big and difficult position because they are doing a ton. They're lobbying. They're also have to do this big trade show that they put on every year. They have to deal with the manufacturers, the big and small, and then they have to deal with all these retailers. So they have a lot on their plate, and they do a lot more than even just that we know about. But yes, money talks. So the big manufacturers have a lot more money to put into the organization. And so say if we were to even start something small for the smaller retailers or maybe the smaller cigar manufacturers, say for example, like when you're small, you don't have a lot of money to say we're gonna everybody put in $100 per month or $300 extra a year to put towards this organization so we can support each other and fight for each other's rights. What motivates a small manufacturer or small retailer to do that when they're like, well, I have to pay for my FDA lawyer, oh, this year, you know, the heating went out, or our air conditioning went out, you know, and that's a huge bill, or your funds are so tight that next thing you know, you just can't put it to something that's for a greater good. You know, you can't see further into the bigger picture. So it makes it definitely a challenge. So, and I think we're a creature of habit. I mean, how long have we done the IPCPR? Everyone bitches and complains about it and how they don't think it's done right, or, you know, X, or, you know, all this stuff. But we still are like, we're gonna go every year, we're gonna support it, but we're gonna bitch and complain how we don't like it and blah, blah, blah. At the same time, we're still gonna go, but we're just gonna bitch about it.
Right. Well, and usually that's where it begins and ends. Is it begins and ends at bitching. There is no action on either side. There's no, you know, this is enough. There's no more, you know, down with the power brokers. Let's have new voices on the council or things like that. There's none of that rising up. You know, I think the takeaways for this video for us, or for anybody thinking about it, and you know, the conversation is first of all, what as retailers can we do better to keep more people in our store? Now, one of the things editorially that Charlie put in there is he was bagging on the retailers. A lot of them don't care, don't seem interested, these different things. Granted, there are people who don't care about their shops, and there are people who clearly shouldn't be in the shop that they're in because they hate people. I don't understand that mentality, but there are people who do that. But there are a ton of retailers out there who do care about the business, who do care about cigars, and want to do the best. Mm-hmm. Now, the world on a whole has been trained, really, and it's not laziness as much as it is just, you know, an elite. It's not laziness; it's more of an alleviating of time. Going online during your lunch break and clicking and ordering something saves you time. You know it's going to get to your house. You know in a couple days you're going to have the same thing you got. It saves you getting out, driving over to a shop, parking, going in, doing all that, and then going out and seeing if they even have it. If they may not even have the cigar you're looking for. When we ask these questions and when we're thinking out loud is, what can we do to make your experience better at a shop? And you know, for us, I think one of the big things that we really worked hard on this last year at Ford on 5th was taking out a lot of these retail elements that just took up lots of space and clear them out to make room for people to be in there. We wanted to create a community there. Like it, love it, or be indifferent to it. For us and for our mission, at least personally, we like the community. And you know, there are plenty of good arguments to say that you know, a lounge is wasted space. You don't make money off the chairs in there. You make money off of in-and-out purchases. Totally get that, and there is a lot of truth to it. But for us, one of the things that I think makes, you know, for us, one of our missions, at least personally, when we look at what these big guys do and what we can do, we try to offer what we fell in love with, at least I fell in love with in the beginning of this industry, and that was community. But I think the first thing that anybody takes away from this on a retail level, looking at these big guys, is what can we do that either they can't, they won't, or they don't have time to do. Because as smaller guys, big guys have advantages, small guys have advantages. What are our advantages as small guys? You know, and the next thing is you're right, like on a bigger scale, what can we as a retail system do to have a voice and have, you know, our rights defended? You know, and once again, going back to the beer, because there's a lot of analogous elements to it. You know, the craft beer has their own organization, the BA organization, Beer Advocacy Group, and those guys fight for the craft beer small companies. When Anheuser-Busch makes big moves and acquires things and tries to be sneaky about stuff, you have them calling them out, writing letters and taking a stand on it, and trying to separate what craft beer makers do versus what the big boys do. So the news is super interesting, you know, and there's lots of opinions on it. We'd love to hear your guys' comments and takes on it. And maybe a lot of you guys just enjoy cigars and could care less about the bigger picture of the industry. And that's fine too. You know, we always say...
Sometimes it's better that way.
Yeah, it's better, you know, ignorance is bliss, as they say. But there are important battles in the days ahead. And there is a good reason to fight for the small guy. Because the small guy is where you like to sit on a Saturday, whether you're smoking your cigar on a national stick and buying one from the local shop to support them as well, or you're just a guy who likes to shop brick and mortars. So there is a place for the small shop, the medium shop, you know, the larger even shop. And there's a place for the giants. There's always going to be, you know, a mixture of that, as long as there's capitalism and a free economy, so to speak. So I think those are the important things, at least that I took away in thinking about those articles and about those positions, is, you know, what can we do as our retail operation? And I'm talking about Mel and Anthony. What can we do to better serve you guys? What can we do, you know, on a bigger level to be more involved and ultimately get into, you know, figuring out these organizations? And maybe that's us taking a bigger role in IPCPR down the road, you know, or maybe that's us of ultimately getting together with some other like-minded manufacturers down the line and retailers down the line. Well, really, not even manufacturers, just retailers who want to do their own retailer organization. That
Putting
really
your
focuses.
differences aside and focusing on the bigger picture.
So I think that's just kind of our thing. But it leads into another video, which we're going to be talking about soon, which is like
Where we are.
where we are, right?
So stay tuned for that one. And I want to close with, just if you really like a boutique cigar company, or if you really like your small brick and mortar, take the time to support them. And then really support, if you love a certain cigar brand, support that brand, because you know that they're probably a small company that's fighting to survive in a big industry against big players. All right, so it's Melanie
and Anthony, and we're Ford on 5th, and we will see you next time. So enjoy a great stick. Remember, tonight we brought to you by TABSA Habano, and from Casa Fernandez, we've got a little 5150 action from Esteban Carreras. Both great medium body cigars.
This
both
one's more
available.
mild.
A little more on the mild side.
Mild, yeah.
A little more mild. This one's definitely a true medium body. Both available at Ford on 5th and Ford on 5th online. Once again, subscribe, guys. Follow us. Give us thumbs up if you like it. Comment. We love interacting with our guys. And, you know, once again, and ladies. We love the ladies too. I love the ladies, for sure.